Deion Sanders has not named all of his starters on defense. So on today's episode of Locked On Buffs, I'm going to be doing just that.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Football season is around the corner. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your future bets now. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and make sure to follow along so you don't miss out on a moment of the coverage because this year is going to be a fun one. Defensive starters, right? Colorado has been very hush-hush, quiet on who's starting, who's not. Now, a lot of this is because I think they operate off of well-off media. So if you want to get info on how this team is lining up, you can kind of just go on well-off media and sort of pause and play videos wherever you just put two and two together. Yesterday, I did my offensive starting predictions. Now I'm doing the defensive starting predictions. And let's start off with the defensive line. The Buffs led the Big 12 in sacks last season, and I think they have an opportunity to probably do that again this year. They return a handful of key players, and I think the one guy who it's for sure, probably the name I've been hearing the most is Arden Walker, the pass rusher, transferred in from Missouri ahead of the 2023 season. He's been one of those long-term development projects for the Buffs from the transfer portal, which they've been doing a lot more of recently. He had 4.5 sacks last season, 33 total tackles, a forced fumble, and his name has been the one where it's like you can't talk about the Colorado defense this offseason and not talk about Arden Walker. So I fully expect him to be chasing after quarterbacks and making their life a living, an HE double hockey stick situation. I don't know if we're allowed to say that on air, Moving on to the interior offense line or defense line spot next to him. I was fully on the Jaheim Oatis train. I was fully on the Jaheim Oatis bus, plane, boat, whatever it may be. I thought Jaheim Oatis would be the guy. And based on what I've been hearing, what we've been seeing, Jaheim Oatis has some work to be done, right? I think he has – I keep saying it because this is what I've been told. This is what we've seen. He has All-American potential. The problem is he doesn't always have that motivation. Now, a lot of people, when I first brought that up, they were a little like, how does a guy not have motivation if he's playing college football for Deion Sanders or Alabama? And it's like, you know what? And I said this, I think this was last week. This is the harsh lesson we're learning about the transfer portal, especially nowadays with NIL. Unless it's a dude transferring from a G5 school to a Power 4 school, or a Power 4 player who hadn't played a lot, or a starter who the Power 4 team lets walk, the NIL money is fine at most of these programs like Alabama, right? So if Alabama really wanted Jaheim Oatis, they would have kept Jaheim Oatis, right? And for whatever reason, they let him walk, right? Kalen DeBoer's staff decided, you know what, not a culture fit for us. We wish him the best, and we move on. And then that video the other day surfaces of Gilly being like, dude, coach is saying you're the best player on the field, but you don't care. So all of this to say, I have Amari McNeil at one starting spot. The other one is Anquan Barnes. Now, Amari McNeil is a guy who's been around. He was also a first-class buff for Coach Prime. I think he was someone who, or just in general, he frequently gets overlooked, and I don't think it's fair to him. That being said, I do think that this is probably going to be the year of Amari McNeil. He had some really big plays last season for the Buffs, 12 solo tackles, 25 total tackles, 3.5 sacks, a forced fumble. That forced fumble, I believe it came against Utah. It was a big hit. I remember that. And 1.5 sacks against Texas Tech, which that was a huge game for Colorado. They started off slow that one. And then he also had a big sack against UCF. So Amari McNeil, he's going to be in the trenches. He started his career at Tennessee, comes to Colorado, and now senior year for him. And they need him to be the guy that he was last year and then some, right? You need to sort of take it to the next level. And then right next to him, I'm going the big body, Anquan Barnes. Anquan Barnes is someone I was very hopeful for him last year, and we didn't get it. and come to find out, the staff didn't feel like he was in playing shape, right? He's listed on ESPN at 6'5", 340. Colorado, I think it was Coach Pecco the other day said he's around, I think it was like 310, 305-ish. And Warren Sapp said if he's not below a certain weight, he won't play. So Coach Pecco said he's much more athletic, much more able to run sideline to sideline. So having a big body like that to clog up the rushing lanes and also chase and pursue after everyone, that's a big deal, right? Colorado needs size. They need to be able to stop the run. And I think this is going to be an Anquan Barnes. I almost said Anquan Bolden. Shout out legend. Anquan Barnes breakout year in the interior. Then let's go to the edge. We have Sam Okunalola. Sam is a guy who I was very high on last year, and I'm very high on him this year. I don't know if he necessarily had the impacts that many were hoping last year, mostly because they had guys like BJ Green. They had guys like Keaton Wade emerge from kind of the cracks, but he had 3 sacks, which was, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 6 other guys that had more sacks than him. I expect Samuel Kunalola to take that next step, and if he doesn't, Keaton Wade will be right there ready to go. Keaton Wade had 4 sacks last year, and I think Keaton Wade will probably be the first guy off the bench for those pass rushers. So that's my defensive front. Let me know what you guys think. Linebackers, DJ McKinney is cornerback 1. That's no question. I think I think there's a strong chance that DJ McKinney is cornerback 1 in this upcoming NFL draft, right? He's that good. I think teams will try to test him a little bit more. I think last year, he made some plays last year too. I'm not going to pretend he didn't. But I think Travis Hunter kind of took all the thunder for how good Colorado's secondary actually was. And no shame to Travis Hunter. He's a two-way player, generational player that we may never see again. So it's not shocking that people want to talk about him more than a traditional corner. But DJ McKinney had 8 pass deflections, 3 picks, both of which were second to Travis Hunter. One of those picks was a pick 6. And he also had a fumble or a forced fumble. So DJ McKinney, he's a dog. He's going to be tested this year. And I like what he brings to the table. Linebackers, I think we're going to go Martavius French and Reggie Hughes. Both of those guys have been making big, I think, impressions. And I also, part of me wants to go Martavius French, Jeremiah Brown. So I'm kind of iffy on that one. Jeremiah Brown's he's been with Coach Prime. He's been around the program. This could be the year. Not that he has that many years of eligibility just lined up, but this could be the year of Mr. Brown. Going over to the other corner spots, we have Preston Hodge, who I think was widely disrespected last year at times. I think there was people who weren't always impressed with him, but still 2 picks, 6 pass deflections, 21 total tackles. He's a guy that he could play on the outside, but I think Colorado likes him, and I think they also expect more from him, right? His grades coverage-wise were both in the 60s. Defensive-wise, he was in the 60s according to PFF. I think they're expecting Preston Hodge to take another step because the year before at Liberty, he was electric. There was a reason that Colorado wanted him so badly, and I think they're going to try to get the most out of him this year. Then we get to that other corner spot opposite of DJ McKinney. I gave the breakdown yesterday. It's a 3-man race between Tyrekus Davis, Deion Parks, and then RJ Johnson. Now, I think they each bring something to the table. That being said, I think Deion Parks, I think he gets the nod. If not him, I think it'll be Tyrekus. That being said, Deion was one of the best coverage corners in all of college football last year, FCS and FBS level combined. Ranked 71st out of 836 defensive backs in terms of coverage grade. So I think he's the starter there. Then we go to safety. I don't know how quickly a battle can be decided, but I do think that I think that Tafiq Bayard probably put his stake on that safety spot pretty quickly. I like everything I've heard about him, everything I've seen from him in the spring game and these well-off media videos. He's been electric, right? He's been dynamic. He's always making plays. They could rush the passer with him. He could cover. He could rush the quarterback. He could do everything, right? So I think there's that. I think he's pretty much got that spot locked up. And then next to him, I think you have to go Carter Stottmeyer. Experienced, versatile, can cover. I think this is his year, right? He stepped in for Shedeur Sanders after Shedeur Sanders was injured. And then at one point, I think most would agree that he was probably the better option than Shedeur Sanders. So Colorado's got a really good defense. I also think a guy who could make an impact is Quincy Wiggins. He was the guy that Coach Prime chose to have wear the green sticker in the spring game, which is the guy that gets the play call. So they have a lot of options. I think this defense has a lot of depth, and I don't think you go wrong, right? I think Colorado's defense has an opportunity to prove a lot of people wrong. I do think that there's this notion out there that because they lost Travis Hunter, like this team as a whole just can't be good. And I think that remains especially true for the defense. So it'll be interesting to see how good they are. Let's look at total defense rankings last year, because I do think Colorado's defense was a little slept on. I don't think they got enough credit because they were such an offensive powerhouse that like everyone was like, like who cares about their defense, right? But they ranked, let's see, pulling it up right now, because I thought they were pretty good. Yeah, 50th in total defense, allowed 351 yards per game, 5.07 yards per play. They're not Texas, they're not Ohio State defensively by any means, but I think with those numbers, with Robert Livingston coming back and him adapting to his new scheme, and I think the defensive line, the front seven, well, specifically the defense line, I think the defense line is going to be a force this year, even more than they were last year. I think that's going to open a lot of doors for this Buffs defense. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some NFL collusion, but first, a quick break. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold prediction and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week one even kicks off, this is your moment. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel. Play your game. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button, because we're going to have some fun this year. If you missed the announcement recently, former Buff Jordan Dominic, who was on Deion Sanders' first team, he's going to be joining the show after every game this season. We're going to be diving into what went right, what went wrong. We're going to have a little film breakdown session. I'll send you guys the link to that when it's available. It's going to be really fun, so don't miss out on that. And my everydayers, appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. If you're not an everydayer, you should become one, right? You like, you subscribe, and the show's not possible without you. NFL collusion. Let's talk about it. Eric Dickerson, who I'm sure you guys all are aware of if you are older than 40, right? Eric Dickerson was one of the best running backs to ever play the game of football, Rams legend, and he threw out the big word, the accusation. When it comes to the NFL draft, he said, "I'll tell you this much: what I heard from someone that's in the NFL, that the NFL told teams, don't draft him. This is about Shedeur Sanders. Do not draft him. We're going to make an example out of him. This came from a very good source, he said." Obviously, if you guys remember, and he also said this. He said, and I won't say who, don't draft him. Don't do that, because they weren't going to draft him either. They were forced into drafting him because somebody made a call to them, right? So he was asked, so what's the objective? He doesn't get picked. He's an undrafted free agent. And Dickerson said, that's exactly what's going to happen. They were going to have him not get drafted to basically show you this is what happens when you do this. I mean, look, the NFL's got all kinds of powers. They do all kinds of stuff. You know it, and I know it. So yes, this was Eric Dickerson, Pro Football Hall of Fame member, Rams legend, basically came out and exposed the Rams, or excuse me, not the Rams. He exposed the NFL's dirty little secret about Shedeur Sanders, that they allegedly were telling teams not to draft him. Now, do I believe this? To an extent, something had to have happened, right? And I think there's really two trains of thought. Everything I was told, everything that was coming out of the draft process was that Shedeur bombed certain aspects of it, right? He bombed the whiteboard stuff for certain teams, and then he allegedly was sort of not dialed in, not locked in to certain teams' interviews, kind of giving out the vibe of their impression, like, hey, I don't want to play for you, so don't draft me. I'm just doing this, right? Because Shedeur Sanders was, up until the draft itself, he was a projected top 10 pick. Even the day before the draft, I think the lowest I saw him was pick 22, I think was the Steelers, pick 21, something like that. but a pick in the 20s, right? And all of a sudden he plummets to the 5th round. It was a little fishy because it's like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Like, how can this happen to Shedeur Sanders? And so I think Eric Dickerson is saying the quiet part out loud, right? And I think that's the difficult part about this is I think there is a world where Shedeur Sanders didn't do well in the pre-draft process. And I also think there's a world where the NFL didn't love him blowing off teams in interviews. There's probably a world where NFL teams didn't love his dad, Coach Prime, saying in interviews like, yeah, we're going to pick where he goes. There's certain teams that we don't want him to play for, right? I think there is a world where that happens. Now, with the investigative journalism that's out there these days, like Pablo Torre is an absolute menace, and I would love to collaborate with him one day. He just absolutely gets it. But Pablo Torre is the guy that just exposed the NFLPA. He's the guy that's been diving into, which you guys probably know him from ESPN, but now his work is just amazing investigative journalism. He's the one that sort of dove into the Bill Belichick, Jordan Hudson stuff. Like, nothing gets by Pablo, right? And so I would love to see Pablo dive into this. That being said, it wouldn't shock me if there was sort of this notion of like, hey, this is the NFL, right? You don't get to just call your shots, right? And the fact that Eric Dickerson is on record saying this, I think it's pretty indicative of like, oh shoot, maybe this did happen. Or maybe if it wasn't every team, maybe certain teams were like, yeah, we're not going to draft him, right? Because to go from a projected 1st-round pick to a 5th-round pick is pretty much unheard of. Usually if stuff like that happens, there's off the field issues like criminal activity. There's a lot of things that need to happen for a fall that big. So for the NFL to be accused of collusion for the NFL draft, one, if that's determined to be true, I mean, it'd be very unethical. And I would imagine there'd have to be some sort of repercussions for all that's involved, because that's about as unethical as it gets. But 2, I mean, oh gosh, like it would blow the sports world up. And I don't know if the sports world is ready for something like that. So truly insane that we're having this discussion, because I think at one point, this was always a theory, right? Colorado fans were always kind of, I guess there was conspiracies out there. It was like Colorado fans always suspected that this was a possibility, right? But there was never like proof. Or there was never like Mel Kiper being on his soapbox about how much he loves Shedeur Sanders was about all we had, right? It was just like, yeah, Mel Kiper loves Shedeur. He had first 30 interviews, right? He was invited to the draft, I believe, right? So if he wasn't invited, I think he was invited, if I'm not mistaken. But there was just a lot of things that we didn't know about the situation. And this comes forward, and now I'm just like, I don't know how to react to that. Like, do I think the NFL colluded against him? I don't know. Would it shock me? Probably not. Would it shock me that the league, who had their NFLPA just blown up because there was a little bit of collusion there, is finding themselves with collusion accusations again? It would not. So, yeah, we're going to see, right? We'll see how this unfolds. I don't think this will be the last we hear of this. I don't think someone of that magnitude throws out a accusation that big if there wasn't anything there. So it'll be really interesting to see how this storyline progresses. And I'll keep you guys updated, because believe me, I want to know everything I can about that matter. When we come back, we're going to be talking about why ESPN is again out on the Buffs. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Rugia. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you even tried it. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugia Ready. Rugia Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugia's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. You can even read real customer reviews on their site to get some people who have used it, experienced it. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugia.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off today. That's RUGIET.com/LockedOnCollege and use promo code LockedOnCollege to get 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compound drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the reshape website for full safety information. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. So make sure to like, subscribe, and follow so we don't miss out on a moment of the coverage. Let's talk recruiting. Just kidding. Let's talk. I had to tease you guys there. Let's talk ESPN doubting the Buffs. Joe Fortenbaugh went a little over under for the Big 12, and he's out on the Buffs. He says less, but I wouldn't be aggressive with it. It's a sharp number because Colorado, the under is 5.5 wins. So basically, do they make a bowl game? Do they not make a bowl game? And he says it's hard to be bullish on a team like this when you take as much production from last year's team off the roster. Great quarterback, Shedeur Sanders. Heisman Trophy winner, two-way player, Travis Hunter. He says, I got them as underdogs in 8 of 12 games. There's some coin flips in there, but I lean to be less here on 5.5 wins. Now, it wasn't just Joe Fortenbaugh. Joey Galloway also said that he sees the Buffs taking a step back. He says, I think that people have these lofty expectations are sort of unfair. He lost the best player in college football in Travis Hunter, lost his starting quarterback, and they're going to take a step back. You've got to win the games you're supposed to win. You got to do what you've got to always do that, and then be competitive at other games. And when you have ranked opponents, when you have opponents at home, you got to be competitive in those games. He says, you go back before he got there, nobody was talking about Colorado at all. We shouldn't be having this discussion on Get Up with you right now. So they just need to win games they're supposed to and be competitive in those games. So I wanted to run you through Colorado's schedule because I look at it and they're saying underdogs in, what did he say? Underdogs in, I think it was 8 of 12, which 8 of 12, which that's pretty insane to me. I'm going to run you through their schedule and then I'm going to talk about where I see Colorado favored. Obviously, week 1, they're underdogs against Georgia Tech. We know this. But Delaware, they should be favored. Houston should be favored. Wyoming should be favored. BYU, I think we're going to quickly learn is a new team. I expect Colorado to be favored against that team. TCU dogs, Iowa State dogs, Utah on the road dogs, Arizona favored, West Virginia favored. So right there, I'm at 6. Right, you got West Virginia, Arizona to go through it again, Wyoming, Houston, Delaware, and then BYU. So 6 games. I fully expect them. Right? Am I counting right? Am I counting correctly? Let me triple work. Delaware, Houston, Wyoming, BYU, of course, Arizona, West Virginia, and then I was missing this other one who I think they should be favored over, and we'll just wait to see. I think TCU is a possible, right? They're on the road. Really depends on how good each team is, right? So, but even then, they had them in dogs in majority of the games, right? They had them in dogs 8 of the 12. Realistically, I think Colorado is going to have a better offensive line. I think the run game, I don't know what it's going to look like early because Dallin Hayden's out, but I think the run game will be more useful, and I think that opens up the offense a lot. I think Caden Salter is a dynamic dual threat quarterback that opens up a lot of possibilities for Colorado. I think it gives a lot of defenses issues with his mobility. Defensively, you return a large chunk of guys who were a part of that defensive line last year that were leading the Big 12 in sacks, right? You add some complementary pieces. I think they upgraded at safety with Tafiq Byard over Shiloh and Cameron Smith and Craig, whoever you want to say he's replacing. And then corner, I think they're going to be good. I think linebacker is my biggest concern. And so I would take the over on 5.5, right? And I think I haven't really done a final record prediction, but I see a world where Colorado starts off 5-0 heading into TCU. And then, at that point, if they're 5-0 or even 4-1, like say they lose to BYU or Georgia Tech, you basically have to win 2 games the rest of the season, right? Arizona and West Virginia are the winnable games where it's like automatically like those are the 2 worst teams in the Big 12, right? Them and Oklahoma State. So I see those games and I go, boom, right there. Like those are where the winnable games come from Colorado. Now, do I disagree that people have some lofty expectations that may be too high? No. I think that's sort of been the Colorado mantra the past 2 years. But I think people who are taking the under on this, I don't think they're bullish enough, right? You have more dynamic quarterback, more balanced offense. You have a defense that probably will be really good again with Robert Livingston calling plays. The Saints wanted it, right? There's a reason that the Sharks were circling for Robert Livingston. And you have continuity, right? Not many teams around the country are able to return head coach OC DC, right? And you also have Byron Leftwich in there helping out on offense. So I think this Colorado team's going to be better than people think. Do I think they're going to be Big 12 contenders? Probably not. I think there's a world where maybe they have some tiebreaker down the stretch, but I think people need to be a little bit more bullish on the Colorado Buffaloes. So appreciate you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. And I will see y'all on Monday. Hope all of you have a great weekend. I forgot what day it was.